I want to start with a specific moment. You've just left somewhere. A dinner, maybe. A gathering at someone's house. Could have been a work event, a birthday, a family afternoon that ran longer than expected. By most measures, it went fine. People were friendly. Conversation moved. You laughed at the right moments. Nobody said anything wrong. And then you get in the car, or you close the front door behind you, and something drops. Not sadness exactly. Not loneliness in the way people usually mean it. Something quieter and harder to name. Like the air has changed. Like something was present an hour ago that is now conspicuously gone. And you're not even sure what it was. You sit in this quiet, and you think, why do I feel more alone right now than I did before I went? I've had that feeling more times than I can count, and for a long time I thought it meant something was wrong with me, that I was doing something wrong in rooms full of people, or that there was some version of connection I kept missing, like everyone else had been handed instructions I never received. I don't think that anymore. I think the feeling has a reason, and I think once you understand it, it stops being a source of shame and starts being something you can actually work with. So stay with me tonight. Because if that feeling sounds familiar, and I think for a lot of you it does, I want to try to explain what I believe is actually happening. Let me start with the gap. When you walk into a room full of people, something in you begins working immediately, not consciously. You start reading the room, the energy, the mood, the unspoken rules of this particular gathering. You adjust. You find the register that fits. You become, to some degree, the version of yourself this situation calls for. And for most people, that adjustment is small enough that they barely notice it. They walk in, they relax into the group, and what comes out feels more or less like them. But for some people, and I think you may be one of them, or you wouldn't be here, the gap between who you are when you're alone and who you become in a room full of people is wider. Not because you're being dishonest, not because you're performing in any calculated way, but because you're a more interior person. You carry more inside than you tend to show. And social situations require you to surface things, reactions, warmth, energy, humor, at a pace and volume that doesn't always match your natural rhythm. Think about what that actually involves. For every hour in a room with people, you are managing not just your own feelings, but your read on everyone else's. You're tracking the person across the table who seems tense. You're aware of the undercurrent between two people who arrived together and have barely spoken since. You're registering things the room isn't saying out loud, and you're doing all of this while also being present, responsive, and pleasant. That's not socializing, that's labor. And when it's over, you don't just feel tired. You feel like something has been used up. Some people describe this as emotional labor, the effort of managing your emotional presentation in social contexts, particularly when what you're presenting doesn't map cleanly onto what you're actually feeling. Most people do some version of this, but for people who feel and process deeply, the overhead is significantly higher, and when it ends, the cost shows up. That's the first part of what you're feeling in the car on the way home. It's not emptiness, it's expenditure. But there's a second thing, and this one is subtler. When you're around people, there are moments, sometimes many moments, that feel like they're almost something, almost real, almost the kind of connection you actually want. Someone says something true. There's a laugh that feels genuine. A moment across the table where two people actually see each other, briefly, before the conversation moves on. You notice those moments. You feel them. And you lean toward them, the way you'd lean toward warmth. And then the evening ends. And none of those moments became anything. The conversation moved on. The gathering dispersed. People went back to their cars and their phones and their separate lives. And the moments that felt like they were leading somewhere simply stopped. What you're left with isn't the satisfaction of connection. It's the outline of it, the shape of the thing without the thing itself. I think this is one of the loneliest feelings available to a human being. Not the loneliness of isolation, not the feeling of having no one, but the loneliness of almost. Of being in a room full of people and feeling the distance more sharply than you would have if you'd simply stayed home. Because at home, alone, you weren't expecting anything. But in that room, some part of you was, and it didn't come. Here's something I've noticed about the people who feel this most acutely. They tend to be people for whom depth is not optional. They don't experience connection on a surface level and feel satisfied. Small talk doesn't recharge them. It costs them. What they're actually looking for in most social situations is at least one moment of genuine contact, one conversation where something real is said, one exchange where the other person is actually there, not performing, not scanning the room, not waiting for their turn to speak. Those moments exist, but in most social situations, they're rare, and the more people in the room, the rarer they tend to get. So what happens is this. You go into the evening hoping on some level for the real thing. You spend several hours in the vicinity of people without finding it, and then you leave, not just tired, but carrying the specific weight of a hope that didn't land. That's not a character flaw. That's a high standard that most social situations simply aren't designed to meet. I spent years feeling guilty about this, like I was being ungrateful for perfectly good evenings with perfectly decent people, like my dissatisfaction said something unflattering about me. Now I understand it differently. The people who feel this after social gatherings are usually the people who are capable of the deepest connection. The frustration isn't evidence of a deficit, it's evidence of a capacity. The evenings that disappointed you did so because you were capable of something they didn't offer. There's a third layer to this, and it's the one I find most interesting. When you spend time alone, real time, the kind you've built your life around, you develop a relationship with your own interior that is surprisingly specific. You know the particular quality of your evenings, the rhythm of your thoughts without interference, the feeling of being in a space that asks nothing of you. And then you go out. And for several hours, that interior is not available to you. You're outward facing. You're responsive. You're present to other people's realities in a way that temporarily displaces your own. When you come home, it takes time to get back. That feeling, the one where your apartment feels strange when you first walk in, where you can't quite settle, where you feel not quite yourself. That's the return, the recalibration. You're not missing people. You're finding yourself again after several hours of being partially someone else. Most people don't notice this because they don't have a strong enough interior signal to notice the contrast. But if you live quietly and intentionally, if you've built a life with real texture inside it, then leaving it and returning to it is a palpable experience. And the gap, right when you walk back in, can feel like loss, even when it isn't. It usually resolves. Give it an hour. The space fills back in. You find your rhythm again. But for that first window, especially after a long evening, especially after a gathering that asked a lot, the quiet can feel like it has a weight to it. That weight is temporary, but it's real, and it's worth naming. So what do you do with all of this? I don't think the answer is to stop going. I don't think it's to lower your standards for connection or to train yourself out of caring about depth. I think those would be losses. What I've found useful, and I want to offer this not as instruction, but as something that worked for me, is simply knowing what I'm walking into before I go. When I know I'm entering a social situation that is likely to be wide rather than deep, a gathering, a work event, a room full of people I don't know well, I go in with different expectations, not lower expectations, just different ones. I'm not there to find the real thing. I'm there to be present in a pleasant, easy way and to come home afterward without grief. The evenings that hurt the most were the ones where I went in hoping for depth and came out having had surfaces. The moment I stopped going to those situations, hoping they'd be something they weren't, the aftermath changed. Not completely, but enough. The other thing I've found is this: the people who can give you the real thing are rare, and they're almost never found in large groups. The person who will actually see you, who will say the true thing, who will be present without performing, that person is usually somewhere quieter, often alone themselves, wondering the same things you're wondering. You don't find them at gatherings. You find them the way you find most things that matter. Slowly, in ones and twos, over time. Here's where I want to leave you tonight. The feeling you have on the drive home, the ache that doesn't quite have a name, is not evidence of something broken. It is evidence of something real. It means you went somewhere looking for connection that matters, in a world that mostly offers connection that doesn't. That's not a pathology. That's an honest response to a genuine gap. You feel alone right after being around people because you are someone for whom being around people was never quite the same thing as being with them. The presence of others isn't enough. The warmth of a room isn't enough. What you're looking for is the moment when another person is actually, genuinely there, and you can feel it. That moment exists. It happens. It's just quieter than everything around it and harder to find than a party with 30 people would suggest. Keep looking for it in the right places. And on the evenings when it doesn't come, go home, close the door, and let the quiet do what it does. It's not emptiness waiting for you. It's you. Tell me in the comments, do you recognize this feeling? The one that comes after the gathering, when the door closes and the quiet changes. I'd genuinely like to know I'm not the only one who spent years thinking this meant something was wrong. I'm Daniel. I'll see you next time.